Hey, see Sparky, Fifer, 1250 a.m. The Fan. Beautiful. Well, not so beautiful. I mean, it's rainy and cloudy. It's not really beautiful. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Of course, online, 1250 a.m. thefan.com. If you're a fan of the Bucks, just did an interview with Eric Name of The Athletic, talking about the start of the season and Giannis's contract extension. How about the Packers? Andy Herman, Pack a Day podcast from last week, talking about this Packers offense and their lack of an identity at this point. Colton Bartholomew talking some Badgers from last week. As well, Badger football. So again, go check it out, 1250amthefan.com or on your Odyssey app. Our guy, Dwight Albrecht, I follow him on Twitter at Dewey300. And of course, he is part of the Spare Time Pro Shop. He runs it, and he wants to talk about a new bowling ball coming out later in the show. So we will do that. Phil Brylow, he is that sexy beast that you see on your screen there at Brew City Bowling.
Beast is right.
And he is everywhere you want him to be. Okay, so let's get into Strike Derby that they did here. I have a confession. I haven't watched this ever in my life until this one.
Okay.
So the last couple of years when we weren't doing a show, again, this is my point about the PBA league and everything else. You don't think of it. Like you're doing your everyday stuff and you're in your routine, right? So I guarantee you a lot of people didn't even know this thing was on, had no idea. When we talked about it last week, I went and I recorded it right away on my DVR to make sure I didn't miss it. So this was my first time experiencing Strike Derby.
Okay.
Brilliant. Just effing brilliant. Like Tom Clark, A+. I don't know if it was his idea, whose idea it was, but I absolutely love it. And I love it from so many different angles. I could talk about just this for an hour, I think. The first angle that I'm going to take on this is the athlete part of it, right? Dwight can't do this for 2 minutes. It's Dwight can't do it for 2 minutes.
Dwight couldn't do this in his prime.
For 2 minutes, right? I'm pretty sure I might pass out if I try to do it.
Right.
It is not easy.
No.
And we always hear from those non-bowlers of, beer guzzling, whiskey shot taking, cigarette or cigar smoking bowlers. That's what y'all are. Y'all aren't athletes. Anybody can bowl, blah, 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 blah. Well, there showed you a lot of those guys are the athletes. A lot of these guys that are working out and are in that shape, like Chris Vi and stuff, those guys could handle it and get through it. And even they were breathing heavy by the time it was done. I mean, you got to throw a ball. You don't even see where the ball goes and you're running back. So the way this works, if you've never seen it, they essentially have they have two pairs of lanes. The right lane on the pair to the left, and then the left lane on the pair to the right. And those are the two lanes you're bowling on. So essentially, you throw a ball on, say, the right side, on that right pair, and then you run back, grab a different ball on that left lane next to you, and then you throw a ball. And you're going back and forth for essentially like 2 minutes, trying to throw as many strikes as you can. And then they have a gold pin that counts for 2 strikes. And then if between all the bowlers, they get 5 strikes. If they get 5 strikes with the gold pin between all the bowlers bowling, everybody got a free game to Brylow, which did happen if you signed up for it prior. Okay, fine. It was so cool. Like I had Tatum, the 1-year-old, she was watching it and watching it. The 7-year-old Jackson, he came inside. He's like, this is crazy. What is going on? My girl Kay, she's watching it. We were all watching it and completely just loving it. And the drama that goes along with it and so forth. I can't say enough good things about it. I thought it was amazing.
It's interesting that the most fit guy on the tour is the one that does win it. Chris, if you ever looked at Chris Vi's biceps. So a funny story was when they were in town, one of my customers.
1 second.
Jared,
do you look at Phil's biceps when he's next to you too?
Well, you can't miss Chris Vi's biceps when he's on TV. The guy's just built. No, to answer your question, no, I don't look at Phil's biceps.
We've called Phil a sexy beast, and now we're talking about Phil's biceps. This is off to a great start.
No, we can't tease them.
This is why you're on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page, people. This is why you're there. You're there to see Phil. Let's be honest. All right, go ahead.
So one of my customers, Jared is his name, and he bowled the Pro-Am and was lucky enough to get Chris Vi, and there was a picture out there in social media of the two doing one of these on the lanes and comparing biceps. And Jared's a gym rat, just like Chris Vi. And so it was funny to see these two together because they're both built the same. They're both ripped.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they could be football players more than they could be bowlers, you know. And so Jared, I think, had Chris Fye a little beat on the bicep aspect of it.
I have a question.
The size.
And we may have talked about this before. I don't remember. But Tiger Woods kind of changed the fit way.
Right.
Who is that guy on this tour that kind of changed how guys approach it? Because Amaretto was a long time ago. So I'm because that's the only guy I can really think of back then that was that
I
guy.
think it's just built since then. I think these guys have realized, and I think college bowling has a lot to do with that as well.
Because there's weightlifting involved.
I mean, a lot of these programs have weight days and gym days, and I know UW Whitewater has that as well.
Yeah,
you know, so even the smaller schools, they got to share it with the big football team and everybody else.
So back in your day, when you guys are bowling, like Holman and Roth and those guys, because I'm old, but I'm not that old. Did those guys bowl in college and then make that transition, or did those guys just come out of high school and compete?
Yeah, I had never heard any.
Weber came out of high school and competed. I know.
Yeah, the only one that was publicized though for the fitting, at least when he was on TV all the time, was Amaretto.
Right, that was the only one.
There
wasn't the college bowling like there is now, where you had that. You were literally coming out of high school and then trying to compete on the tour.
Yeah, you never saw a college team bowling at South Point for a championship.
Right.
Yeah, that never was on TV.
Yeah, that kind of transitioned in the 90s when it started getting a little bit more under the officially under the ABC and WIBC back in the day. Was a little bit more of the transition where some players were, instead of going out on tour right away. And part of that had to do as well. You look at some guys that were college players in the early 90s, like Chris Barnes and that, they could go out on weekends. They had those huge megabuck tournaments when they weren't in school and stuff like that and clean up there. And so, hey, let's get our college education, bowl out in college, stay sharp, and then just clean up all over in these megabuck tournaments.
Yeah.
And then when the megabucks started fading, then all of a sudden people realized, hey, Pro Tour wasn't paying a lot, but I can still get an education, bowl collegiately. So that's where it kind of turned mid to late 90s is where the big turn happened. Right. Where a lot of guys, instead of going out on tour when they're 17, 18, 19, I mean, you look at, the guys that were out there, Duke and Weber, 17, 18 years old on TV or winning on tour. And then that just is kind of changes. Just kind of, you see the guys getting older when they first come out on tour now. Is the rarity of the Anthony Simonsons and stuff is, I think, going to continue to be a little more rare unless the prize money really picks up with Brylow, because there's some good kids out there like Eric Jones and Dio Bernard that are 18, 19 years old, but they're bowling regionals mostly or PTQs. The side college wasn't for them, but that's more of the rarity than anything.
I think the ladies actually had the first ever TV contract for college.
Really?
Yes. I remember watching Kelly Kulik at the Fieldhouse in Madison. That had to be the late 90s. One of the college finals. Yeah,
there was college stuff earlier. Actually, when Red Carpet Celebrity, for those of you here in Milwaukee, remember when that was around, there's a video out there on YouTube of like 1978 or 1979 with the Collegiate National Championships sponsored by Pabst Extra Light.
Of course.
College bowling championships sponsored by a beer company. So it's beautiful.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a little
college students don't drink, right?
Yeah, a little different nowadays, obviously. But yeah, that was the sponsor of one of the first televised college bowling championships.
All right, so back to the Strike Derby thing. So clearly the physical fitness aspect of it kind of plays into this thing.
Yes.
The other thing that I didn't think about until Randy Peterson brought it up, and then you kind of saw it, was two-handed bowlers got their hands full of oil, literally, bowling in this thing, because you don't get the chance to wipe off your ball or anything. No. So the oil just accumulates on your ball, which makes it harder to grip, Phil.
Right.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show you, even with everybody talks about the urethane bowling balls grabbing oil, resin does it just as much. It just sits on the surface, and 5-6 shots, all of a sudden, it's almost impossible for the two-handers to really keep that front hand on. It wasn't the hand with the fingers in the ball that was the problem. It's the guide hand in front. Belma, you could just kind of see where he's actually putting pressure on with his left hand and wrist to try to make sure he was keeping both hands of the ball through the downswing. And that kind of got him a little bit, because you used to it just having it on there, but being relaxed and guiding it. When you have to force it on, it messes with the mechanics a little bit. And I think that was part of the problem for Belmo not getting out of the first round.
Also, Belmo has a very slow pre-shot routine.
Right.
He puts his foot up on top of the ball return. He puts his hands over the hand dryer. And so he's got a very slow pre-shot routine. So wasn't surprised with this being rapid bowling that he wasn't going to do very good.
Who was it? Svensson that threw the reactive resin, and Randy Peterson freaked out. He's like, what the heck is going on? What is going on? This dude's out here throwing reactive resin. Were you surprised by that?
A little, and I agree with Randy. It's like because you never see Jesper throwing reactive on TV. At least I don't know if he does in qualifying.
Sometimes we've seen him with it.
I mean, his ball of choice has always been the pitch black.
Yeah, pattern dependent. And Jesper was a lot more deliberate than everybody else too. I mean, Jesper only threw 16, 17 shots, but the other guys were getting 21, 22, 23 off. You know, Jesper was able to be a little more deliberate with the resin and just kind of post the shot, freewheel it, have it come back, and then he'd go back and get the other ball for his next shot in the other lane.
I was happy to see him throw it, so we know that he's not one-dimensional.
Yeah, that's a soft pattern too. I mean, the Roth pattern for the tour guys, 5-to-1 it's a house shot for the rest, for them.
Yeah,
you know, you have these Thanksgiving coming up, obviously, next month, and you have these 9-pin no tap tournaments on Thanksgiving Day and everything else. Oh. Surprised people don't do the Strike Derby concept and have like a mini Strike Derby tournament,
like
and
locally?
and it's not 2 minutes, maybe it's 60 seconds. It's like, 1 minute
locally.
Yeah, like locally at a facility. It's 1 minute, not 2 minutes. And you reserve a bunch of lanes, and proceeds go to charity, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And you make it a bracket style format, 1-on-1, just like you would a softball tournament type deal.
Well,
and go.
The only way you can get that to happen is you're going to have to get either people to work the machines in the back, because again, they even had to stop the timer on TV because they were going faster than the machine. Or B, you have a machine that you can program it if the person doesn't get a strike to sweep the pins away and set it down right away.
I was thinking about this when I was watching it, and I was disgusted with myself. These string pins probably would work better for this type of situation, or do you think it would be worse?
Slow, because if they tangle a little bit, and then they got to go back down and untangle,
back up. Right.
So, and that's kind of the unsung heroes of the TV show are the 4 guys that were working in back the whole time, one on top of the machine and one on the back. Because as soon as the ball and the crash and the pins would end, the guys would make sure the ball would get back up the rake and then fill in all the pinwheel stuff so the pins could get up there quick enough and not have that much of a delay.
That should be shown on TV.
Yeah.
Yes.
That should be shown on TV. Nobody knows that.
Like
nobody knows those people are back there. People just think it's just the machines are slow.
Yeah.
They don't realize there are people back there manually doing things.
Yeah. And that's what happened with one of Chris Vai's strikes is that the rake came down and the ball
he hit it.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. The guy in the back accidentally triggered because they're trying to get into a rhythm. Right. It's the same thing. They're in the same rhythm that the players are in to make sure that if it wasn't a strike, sweep it, get all the pins up there, get into a rack in there, that type of thing. So, you know, for the 4 guys that were back, the Portland guys that were back there from Bopo, I mean, other than that one little blip, it was phenomenal. It's just the machinery is just so old. Like you need to help it to keep up.
Those are A2s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because everybody knows what you're talking about. Those are A2s. Like, it's common knowledge. Everybody knows they were A2s watching.
The former mechanic.
Yeah, I think the serial numbers on those are from 62 or 63 originally.
Oh, my Lord.
They're pretty old. Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So how much different is the equipment a machine that you would buy now versus the machine that he has in there currently?
I think a lot faster.
It would be a little bit faster. It's a little different pin delivery system.
Yeah. Correct.
With Brunswick has these GSX pin setters. AMF pin setters really haven't evolved speed wise, but solid state wise, they work better and they don't get as many what they call stops if a pin gets out of spot or something like that. The GSX pin setters, they're a little different because the pins actually travel farther throughout the machine. They travel faster, but they travel farther. And really it's a little faster, but not much. I think it would still be if they moved it to Charlie Mitchell's new place at Broadway Bowl in Portland. They have these GSX pin setters, and maybe it would help a little bit, but I don't think so. It really takes the human assistance to make sure that Strike Derby.
So there really is no major incentive for a bowling operator to get new machines if they have old machines that are working then, because there's not a huge difference between the two.
Power wise, you save a lot of money on electricity.
Okay, well then that's a good reason then.
Yeah,
if that's what it is.
Yeah, and the newer AMF pin setters too work. I mean, they have these on the old AMF pin setters. They have these big chassis boxes with all these old not vacuum tubes, but they look pretty close. And it's just a lot of wasted electricity. Where I know a couple of centers that have pulled out old Brunswick machines and put in the new Brunswick machines, and they've paid for themselves in like 10 years on the electricity.
That's wild.
Yeah,
that is wild.
If you really want to trip though in terms of speed, go down to Riviera on Greenfield because they have Brunswick A1s down there, and they move at half the speed of what an A2 is. So you want to talk about 3.5 hours of
it used to take us 3.5 hours for a 5-man league at Riviera on Thursday.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which
The decks come down like this.
I was glad my wife, was driving me on those Thursdays. Let's put it that way.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah, I guess so.
More time to cocktail.
The other thing about the Strike Derby that I was surprised about, and we saw it early, was Kyle Troop all kinds of pissed off, screaming and yelling about how he got screwed on time because he got delayed 3 or 4 times and they didn't stop it.
Right.
And then they said the ball didn't get out on time on that last shot, and he was mad. Now, he eventually ended up winning the roll-off, so big deal, and he didn't hold a grudge necessarily on TV about it, but he was chirping and mad, and I think everybody there was like, whoo, he is pissed. But what was happening was, if you watched him, he kept shaking his head every time they stopped that clock going forward for anybody else. He was just shaking his head like, great. Yeah, you didn't do that for me. Clock kept running until the damn thing went up.
Right.
And now this guy over here, he's getting the benefit of the doubt every time it stops. Well, and he didn't get that the first time. Now, I don't know whose fault that is one way or the other, but he had a legitimate gripe, I think.
I think somebody paid a little more attention to it after they happened the first time.
Nuts.
Because, I mean, you have to have somebody watching the lane that's not being bowled on, waiting for the pins to reset. That needs to be the person watching the clock.
Right.
Because then that clock, if they see that the ball's delivered on the other lane, and they see that the pins, once it hits the pins, if they see that the other lane doesn't have pins yet, they got to stop that clock immediately and wait until the rack starts coming up so the bowler can make their approach at safely. You don't want somebody firing it while the rake's still down or whatever and making a guess. But it just you kind of need the person handling the shot clock to watch the opposite lane the whole time to make sure you stop it on time. And I think that's probably what they did once they got through that first round.
Another guy that obviously stood out was Matt Ogle. Holy crap. Like, I was not expecting that. That dude was a damn near a machine the first time he went out there. I don't think he missed one until 12 in or something like that.
Yeah. One thing they didn't talk about, and I think this is maybe why he was so steamed, was they never told what the winner got for money.
Oh, I remember. 20 grand.
Okay, 20 grand. So, I mean, there's money involved, obviously. I don't know, the more the money, the more you have a reason to be pissed off.
Absolutely.
Things are not working, so.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, the competitive aspect, you want to win. If you're going to compete, you want to win. Yes, it's a fun event. Yes, it's not something to determine the best bowler in the world. It's just something fun and to do for another TV show. Like I said, I loved it. And I'm going to say the same thing I said about PBA League. This needs to be somewhere else. Like, this unless you have a new section of TV where you say, okay, we're going to have a new 2 months on the TV schedule. So, we're going to end in April or May or whatever it's going to be. And then in September and October, we're going to have 8 TV shows spread out over 2 months. And it's going to be every Saturday night at 6:00 or every Sunday night at 6:00 or whatever the time is going to be. But we're going to lock it into one time, and it's going to be all the way across outside maybe the PBA League Championship. Maybe you get that on Big Fox. But outside of that, you do it that way, and you show more PBA League games than maybe what you showed. And then you throw this one in here. Maybe you come up with another fun one to do as well. And you tell everybody, look, 2 months of bowling every year now in September and October that we didn't have before. And now people are gonna be like, okay, now I know in September and October, I got to remember every Sunday it's going to be this. And you kick it off Labor Day weekend with your first PBA League match or Strike Derby. Maybe that kicks it off that weekend. I don't know. Something to kind of get everybody there, because it's random crap. 2 weekends on and then 2 weekends off, and then here's another one here. It's just tough to expect a fan, even the diehard fan, to remember that it's on when you have family life and you're running around and football's on and now the NBA starting, all this. Like, that's a big ask to remember to watch this.
Did you see? Yeah, I think the only promo they had for the kickoff for 2024 with the Players Championship, January 15th or whatever that was at the end of the show.
Right.
I mean, and you get a humongous lead in from the NFL. I mean, Jeff Riggles from LeatherFrame.com always checks the PBA ratings. And once again, this year, the highest rated PBA show is a non-title show, this time being the Strike Derby. Had a 0.55 rating, million plus fans watching.
That is
because over different time zones.
It was completely different. Yeah. People that were watching were like, what the hell are they doing? What is this? Yeah. And then, like in my house, everybody gathers around the TV to watch the craziness of what they're doing. That's how they hooked them. Yeah. If that's a regular show, do you get as many people to hold that long? I don't know. But that craziness, that got them.
A major, maybe. If it's Tournament of Champions,
But I guarantee you,
I think
you had casual fans that have probably hardly ever watched bowling at state because of the nonsense of running all over the place.
And there was the first line on the promo coming into the show. This isn't, basically summarizing, this isn't an everyday bowling tournament. Right. This isn't your usual ho-hum. This is the Strike Derby. And that kind of helped, I think, bring a few people back in that maybe would have changed the channel.
It's just, but again, I still think you lost some core PBA people that did not happen to have that NFL game on that would have watched had they known. Now, I will say this. Is there anything else that they can steal from another sport to make their own, like they did the home run derby into the strike derby, in order to get this done that would hold an audience? We talked about that hyper bowling or whatever the heck it was. And that's essentially target bowling is my understanding of what it is. I wonder if you could have some type of target bowling tournament of some sort that would get these guys involved in a similar, same type of way that you would in a hyper bowling type situation, whether it's different spare shooting, whether it's literally putting bumpers up and you have to hit 2 or 3 different spots on bumpers and then high pinfall or something, again, that people aren't going to see, but people can relate to because they can do it themselves and go out to the lanes or whatever the case may be. Something that separates it, because I don't know what other thing you could possibly do that would tie in outside of that strike derby besides maybe a target shooting tournament.
I was very entertained by the LBC final show, and the elimination format. I really like that. I would have loved to know what the ratings were on that one if the strike derby got a 5.5. But I thought that was very entertaining also, because you wanted to stay watching it long enough to see eventually who won. And of course, we were all pulling for Lenny, being from Wisconsin. Yeah. And Lenny finished third, which was a great finish, but it would have been great to see him win it.
I think with the systems that they use, obviously you see the ball track behind the ball on the lanes. It's done by Specto and Clutch Bowling. They can project targets and stuff out there, like you were just talking about. So let's say you have a target at the arrows and a target at the break point. And if you hit both those targets and strike, then you get maybe 5 bonus pins or something. You can make it pop up in a different spot every time. Right. So all of a sudden, the guy is going from playing right up the gunner on his first shot, and all of a sudden he's playing fifth arrow on his next shot, and it just comes up and it moves. And then you get, that could be something that could be very interesting to non-fans, going like, wow, hey, these guys can
take the target for the right-handed bowler and put it on the left side of the lane and say, you got to throw a backup ball. Yeah. And then do the same thing for the left-handed bowler, right? Or say, all right, the goal this time is you got to throw the 7-10 split. Go get it. Yeah. You got to throw it down the middle and try and get the 7-10 split. Whoever leaves 7-10 split, you get this. The point structure is completely different, right? So you change the points, right? If you accomplish this, it's 50 points. If you get whatever, and you change it and make it something completely different that these guys never normally do, and to see what happens. It's a wild, crazy idea, but I think casual bowlers like this strike derby, I think would stay and say, this is pretty wild. This is a pretty cool thing.
Correct. They tried that obviously in the 90s. We talked to Randy Peterson about that, because Randy Peterson was more an exhibition in Madison, but Randy Peterson made the 7-10 split on TV, but unfortunately it wasn't a PBA event, so it's never going to fall into the 4 that now have made it on TV, and only one being Mark Ruff that was right-handed.
All right. So before we get out of here, and that was fun time, PBA Strike Derby. Highly recommend if you can find it on YouTube or whatever. It was fun to watch. All right, Dwight. So talk about this new bowling ball that you wanted to get into here.
Last week at the end of the show, we were talking about this. Phil was talking about this new bowling ball coming called the NU.
Right.
And we ended up finding a week later that it's a new hammer bowling ball coming out to address the 78-degree hardness issue.
So does Storm follow up with the FU ball? No? Okay.
They didn't follow up.
I just don't know what the F would be for.
Yeah.
Who cares?
F urethane.
It would still be
urethane.
Right.
There we go.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so they came out with the NU, and it stands for not urethane.
Right.
So if it's not urethane, what is it? So I went and watched many videos being a pro shop operator, and one of them that was out there was Packy Hanahan, and we had Packy on our show a few weeks back. And so Packy says, and he does a great job comparing the new NU to the Purple Hammer urethane. And he says in the video, if you have any comments, list them below. Or any questions, list them below in the comment section. So I accidentally did. Right. And so I said, well, if it's not urethane, what is it? Question mark. Is it resin? Question mark. Is it polyester? ? And believe it or not, there was a response that came back about 15, 20 minutes later, and it says from Packy. I'm assuming it said the house.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it was Packy that answered. He goes, all I know is it's not urethane, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah. Marketing,
Come
and
on,
more marketing.
Packy, throw me a bone,
It's
would
like
you?
it's like when they show you a new bowling ball out there, and
Killing me.
I always just want to go, can you show me what the ball does after 50 games, like every 190 average league hack out there that barely cleans their equipment and stuff like that?
What if someone
show me what it does after
Right.
50 games, because that's kind of like me if I'm out there bowling. Like, show me what it's going to do in 50 games if I don't play with the surface and all that stuff. Show me
absolutely.
that.
I need to know what, as a pro shop operator, can we tweak the cover? I mean, sure, they're all thrown and sanded,
Right.
but what if someone wants it polished? Does it then become more
What
of a
does it
reactive?
change? Right.
You know, and so eventually another company is going to break down whatever they did and be able to come out with their own version of it. It's
But
not
what
like the
makes it so
90s.
special?
It mimics a purple hammer urethane reaction,
But it's not urethane.
but it's not
Not
urethane.
urethane.
So at least the one video I watched by a gentleman up in Brunswick, Brunsnick, he goes by Brunsnick. I'm sure
Nick
Phil
Smith.
Nick, Phil knows who he is. On his video, verbally said that it does absorb oil, but at a very slow rate. So he let the cat out of the box in terms of mouse out of the box. But anyways, he says that obviously by that absorbing oil, that there is porosity. So you have to assume it's very similar to what Motive did with microcell technology, which means it is a resin ball that absorbs oil at a very slow rate. They just happen to find a combination that mimics that purple hammer urethane reaction.
Man, that's wild. That is wild stuff.
But Packy's comment got me, though.
When do you have them in the shop for people to buy?
November 16th is the worldwide release. We already got 2 guys already ordered on it.
How much?
And then a few days later comes out the Storm's announcement that they're coming out with a burgundy colored IQ. That is a true urethane ball. That's 78-degree hardness. Now, the thing that's interesting in the Brunswick video that they post, and I was talking to Phil about this off the air, was if the ball's not urethane, in the video promo, they show it hitting a durometer, and the durometer read 78.7. Well, if it's not urethane and the legal limit is 73, why does it have to be 78.7? That has to be my question for Brunswick.
See, I'm glad I don't got to deal with you.
Yeah.
He is Dwight Albrecht, Spare Time, a pro shop in New Berlin. Phil Brylow. Follow him on Twitter, Bruce City Bowling. Follow Dwight at Dewey300. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Check out the interviews I do at 12:50 a.m. thefan.com. Also, don't forget you can download this fine podcast on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app. Have a good one. Toodles.